the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 256, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS. You put down $5, you get $50 back in prize money. So go to PrizePicks for that. And we're presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's an exciting time, beginning of September, and captain's practice. We're doing this on Tuesday. It was today. Tuesday, there's another captain's practice. On Thursday, hockey, fresh quotes, news. You get to see some of the rats in the press box, and it's life is coming back to normal, which is nice. Everybody coming back from summer. It almost kind of, the last 2 weekends I've been at hockey events. So that's kind of felt, hot. It's not new for hockey, but like first Bruins event of the year kind of felt like first day of school or like some sort of like orientation almost. If I can make a school analogy here, like first day of training camp, I guess would really be the first day of school. But I guess captain's practice would sort of be like a orientation, so to speak.
No, it's like you roll in, you got your new Heelys that your mom bought you at Target. You have like the new backpack.
That your mum bought you at Target.
Yeah.
You've never had that accent was like almost a little new. Like it wasn't an English accent, but it was like right on the edge.
A little bit there. It was a little bit of a blend, but you got that. You got your new backpack, the little Bratz dolls font on the side of it. You got your apple bottom jeans. This feels like I went to high school in
boots
2006.
With the fur.
Yes, I didn't have the boots with the fur. I had the apple bottom jeans. No. But no, it does feel like, new school year, seeing all your old friends, chopping it up, and then you get right back into the swing of things where it's, all right, all of a sudden you get flooded with tweets being like, when's Jeremy Swayman going to sign? And you're like, we're back, baby. We're locked in.
That's all that matters. That's what matters most. We'll get to Swayman in a bit because he was there at captain's practice, which again is not a surprise. That's not some, you don't have to be on the team to be at captain's practice. Chris Wagner was there in his Colorado Avalanche gear. Welcome sight, by the way. I will always take Chris
Walpole's own. Yes.
Exactly.
Walpole legend.
I saw I was next to you and I saw the Avalanche gear and it was a righty and I kind of see the face and I said, oh my God, that's Chris Wagner. Of course it is. So nice to see him back.
I thought they got McKinnon or someone like that. They just swung a trade.
That would have rocked. Or Leon Draisaitl's there. We'll also get to him.
Yeah, so much for that.
But the big news of Tuesday was Brad Marchand spoke to the media and mentioned that he had 3 surgeries this summer. 3. Elbow, groin, abdominal. So that's 3 surgeries. I think Don Sweeney had told us back at the end of the year that everybody would be fine. There were going to be no surgeries. Turns out Brad Marchand had 3. Now he says he'd like to be ready to get to start for training camp. Doesn't seem like opening night is in question. That seems, as of now, according to him, that seems to be no problem. One other interesting thing, though, that he mentioned was he had not started getting back on the ice and training until 2 weeks ago. So, again, that's kind of why training camp, he may not be out there for days 1 or 2 or however long the beginning will be. But what's your reaction to 3 surgeries?
I mean, listen, it's not ideal to have, to be under the knife that amount when you've got over 1,000 games tacked on your frame. You're, 36 going on 37. I think he turns 37 like in May, so very late into the year, but still 16th NHL season.
We got to make him sound as old. We got to make him sound as old as possible.
Yes, exactly.
He'll be 40 in 3 years.
Yes, he used to watch Rugrats on TV. No, he used to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is I think his go-to. But not to further age him, but I mean, listen. Anytime you've got that much mileage, taking that much punishment, it's not ideal, especially when it's he even mentioned like it gets tougher and tougher every year. The league is getting faster. Younger players are coming to the league with much more skill. And that, that's not to say that his days are numbered or he's looking over his shoulder or anything like that. He's always had that mindset of, his spot on the roster is never safe, even though he's the captain. And I think he's a pretty clear lock to make the team. He's had that mindset ever since he's been, a rookie trying to carve out a fourth line spot on this team way back when. So, I'm not concerned in terms of like, this is more showing that he's at the end of his ropes or we're expecting a 40-point season or anything like that. Hell, like he even looked at, he mentioned that I think the elbow was bothering him the whole year last year, which you look at how often, especially the year went on, he was really misfiring on those one-timers on the power play. Maybe you can kind of draw a little bit of correlation there. Maybe it was that elbow that was bothering him. So who knows? Maybe it could be like the double hip surgery where, he gets a clean bill of health and this helps him out. Like, even though he's maybe a little bit slow to start the year in terms of his ramp up, but it could benefit him in the long haul. But still, it's one of those things where the more you go under the knife, at his age, it does start adding up. So I don't think this is like a stark sign that this is going to, like, his production's going to dip or anything like that. But it is a reminder that he is 36. Like, these things are going to become more commonplace. And I don't think that means that Bruins fans should be bracing for a big dip or anything like that. But again, he is starting a little bit maybe slower out of the gate this year as he tries to get back up to what he mentioned, like the conditioning and physical part of it, as opposed to fatigue or, this is, I think it's also important to note that, like, even though he's had all these surgeries, it's not like there's some guys who go through all this and it's like, yeah, I'm done. Like Bergeron, again, probably, like, dude won the Selke his final year, but he's like, fuck this. Like, I've done more than enough. It's time to relax. Like, I think Marchand still wants to play a couple of years. He's 70-ish points away from 1,000. 2026 Winter Olympics are kind of sitting there on the horizon. And that's something that, whether he makes the team or not, wants to put his best foot forward to try to, because that's something that I think means quite a bit to him to represent Canada. So I don't think this is a guy that views this as, being in his contract year, it's going to be kind of the last hurrah or anything like that. It's just a reminder that age catches up to everyone, including a guy who's kind of defied a lot of expectations over the years.
So I agree with you on all the Marchand stuff. I mean, you think about sort of, like, I agree with you. 40-point season. God, no. I don't think we're ever going to see that from Brad Marchand, at least this season. But I think it kind of goes in line with what I said earlier in the offseason, where it's like, I don't think you can expect him to be 85, 90 points or anything like that. And you have to expect that there are going to be times when he looks a little bit slower. There were some interesting comments, though, that make me think otherwise that he made on Tuesday. And he was basically asked by Haggs, your approach as an older guy compared to a younger guy when you're coming in. And of course you hear the prototypical, well, you still got to make the team and blah, blah, blah. But Marchand did make an interesting point about, you do see a lot of guys at his age start to fall off a bit. And one of the reasons is because you get to that, late 30s and you often have young kids. And those kids are playing their own sports. They're, usually around 5, 6 years old, 7, 8, 9. And, your kids are doing fun things. They have school plays and they have dance recitals and dads and moms can speak on this a lot better than I can, but he was just kind of laying that out. And he mentioned how, guys start to focus a lot on that. And that's when they can get passed by. And he, without saying it, kind of implied that, no, I'm solely focused on my career and I want to continue to focus on this as the years go on and as he gets older. And I think that leads us, at least led me to believe that, I don't think there's going to be some massive fall off with him. And I think it goes back to what you said of this, the 26 Winter Olympics, he's 70 from 1,000 points. He wants to do this for as long as he can do this. I don't think this is going to be, at 39 years old, he's hanging him up. I don't think his next contract, if it's under 3 years, I don't think it's his last. I think he's going to keep, hammering away at this. And you look at, most likely a concussion back in the playoffs. You have 3 surgeries this summer. You had double hip surgeries 2 summers ago. A lot of guys would say, no, I'm not. I'm done. There's no reason to keep playing. I have a Stanley Cup. I've had an awesome career. He's defied every single odd. I became captain. I'm going to walk away. He's not doing that. And I think there's good and bad to that. The good for the Bruins is that you get a top 6 legit winger who sets your culture and all that stuff. So I think, and the negatives would be his own personal health and all that stuff. But that's not, we're here to talk Bruins and hockey and things like that. So I think, again, I'm in your camp where it's like, I don't expect some drastic fall off from him. And I think that stuff is interesting that, he's sort of shed light on why guys can sometimes fall off. And that, I don't think there's going to be that massive dip, at least this year. At least this year. I don't know what the next couple of years are going to look like, but at least this year, I don't see that being the case. I also found it interesting. He, said that he expects to play with Coyle again, and how on that second, he mentioned kind of what he wants in that second line right winger. We'll get to that in a second, but first, quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. Big questions going into the football season. Will Patrick Mahomes throw for more or less than 267.5 yards one week? Will Jalen Hurts throw for 240.5 passing yards another? Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Now, back to the show. So Brad Marchand shed some light on sort of what he's looking for in that second line right winger. And that's something you and I have talked about at length this summer of who's it going to be? Fabian Lysell, Morgan Geekie, Trent Frederick. Basically what Marchand said was whoever is there, don't try to do too much. Play a responsible game. Yes, you can dangle through 3 people, but what we need is someone who is responsible. And to me, that sounds like Morgan Geekie and Trent Frederick. That does not sound like Fabian Lysell, at least right now. Obviously, how Lysell does in training camp, we don't know yet. Obviously, training camp has not happened quite yet. But I did find that comment interesting of, okay, he wants, I don't know if a rookie is what he wants on that right side.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he mentions, like, specifically, like, yeah, you can't just be a guy that wants to dangle through 3 players, I was like, oh, well, Fabian Lysell better learn. Get ready to learn defense, buddy, because that is something
where name off the list, like, oh man, there it goes.
And again, that's not to say that I think you're setting up these boundaries or these parameters before camp starts, right? Like, if Lysell is a dynamic player and he's complimenting getting more out of playing with Marchand and Coyle, I think you roll with that. The younger player that can thrive in that spot, is on an affordable contract, is a great asset to have, and also it keeps guys like Geekie and Frederick further down the lineup. I think you'd welcome that situation playing out, but as Marchand said, it can't be a guy who's not adhering to like the identity of the team, which is usually just kind of the refined two-way play, right? Like you look at why if DeBrusque of, a few years ago where he was, viewed as this 25 goal scorer, but still had maybe more to give defensively, maybe he wasn't going to be a fit. Maybe he would have been like a third line guy as opposed to where he ended up being with, Marchand and Coyle and, Bergeron before that, where he rounded out his game to be a really solid two-way guy. That's not to say that I don't think it's fair even to be like, all right, Lysell, you need to be a 15 goal, 40-point guy as a rookie, but also like we need your defensive metric. We can't have Jay Fresh have you in like the 11th percentile of defense or something like that. Like
we cannot have you getting roasted on Twitter.
Yeah, so I mean, I think especially from Jim Montgomery and the Bruins staff and all those things, I think you do have to give guys like Lysell a bit of leeway, right, in terms of giving him the opportunity to round out his game, go through some of the growing pains. It's not going to be even if he makes the team in October, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be something where it's going to be seamless. It's going to be games where, He'll have zeros on the score sheet. Maybe there's a game where he has a great goal, but he has 2 goals against off of some missed coverages on the other end of the ice. Like, it's a 21-year-old rookie, right? Like, you're going to go through these growing pains. But if you're the Bruins and you really want to see what this guy can do, I think you have to stick with him, go through the growing pains, go through the ups and downs that I think, hits every young player in the NHL and see what he has there. So I think probably for Marchand, it's more of a the established veteran, the established captain, like reinforcing those things. He even mentioned that when he was a rookie, he played on Mark Savard's line. He was trying to do way too much and didn't go well for him, right? Like, I think it's more of maybe him just mentioning like the learning curve and the experience and how to keep yourself kind of grounded when you're in those scenarios for the first time. But I think it probably is just a good reminder to, as much as we look at like Lysell and the skill and all those things, is the thing that makes him a really good candidate for a top 6 role. Can't just be a one-trick pony or just rely solely on his offense to stick in the NHL ranks.
No, and you also heard Marchand on Tuesday say, we go against teams' top lines. We're a two-way line, like we're a shutdown line, and like it does, that goes along with Lysell. Given off what he's shown so far, is not a shutdown guy. He's an offensive, he's dynamic offensively, and that's his thing. I still think that even through training camp, Lysell can prove that he's good enough defensively and also add some offensive pop to that line. Like that is one thing I really want to see in the preseason. What do those 3 look like together? And then again, we can play the game, and I'm sure we'll do this a lot during training camp. If Lysell is not on that second line, where is he? Is he on that third line? Like, he's not on the fourth line. So again, that kind of gets into that whole debate there. Jeremy Swayman at practice, or at captain's practice on Tuesday. That was sort of my big takeaway from the day, on ice at least. I'm curious, did you have any big things you saw, things you liked, anything like that?
I mean, I think definitely encouraging in terms of the attendance was great for a captain's practice. You have a lot of guys already there accounted for, a lot of new faces. You saw like the starts of, the fourth line there with Beecher, Max Jones, big body. I think he skates pretty well for that size. So, I mean, I am excited to see how that bottom 6 kind of rounds out. If you ask me right now what that bottom 6 unit's going to be, couldn't tell you. I think there's a lot to like about what guys like Jones and Beecher and Castle can do there. But I think it's the one thing probably I noticed more than anything, beyond like you trying to scribble out the names, looking at like trying to read the numbers on the back of their helmets or trying to figure out who these guys are. A lot of size out there between like their forward core. You have Brazeau, who was once again at the net front trying to make things difficult for guys like Swayman and Corpusalo. It should be a really fun team, right? Where I think all across the lineup, whether it's the D core, whether it's the forward grouping, a lot of, I think, untapped potential there with, a couple guys that, again, it's how I've kind of mentioned it before when you're trying to gauge where this team is and what they can offer. Like, if you have 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that all have just a little bit more to give and they can grow in those respective roles, I think there's a lot to like about where the direction this team is. And it just feels like there's so many of those guys that they give you another 5 to 10 points. If they carve out another part of their game, I think it just overall, the foundation of what you're trying to build here, you should be in a pretty good spot. So it's exciting to see kind of who makes the most of that opportunity going into camp.
Yeah, and again, if Bruins fans want to see who's making that opportunity and making the most of it during preseason games, go check out our good friends over at GameTime.
The summer is coming to an end, but rejoice, sports fans, because football season is back. And if you're a Patriots fan and want to make your way to Gillette Stadium, you got to go with GameTime tickets. There's nothing better than posting up with your buddies at a tailgate, working the grill, knocking back a few beers, and taking in that crisp fall air over at Foxborough. With the new Patriots season upon us, now is your time to see Drake May in action, and GameTime tickets will get you the best seats at the best prices to get you into the stadium. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace that makes getting NFL tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to kickoff. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. There's no shortage of options when using the GameTime app. GameTime Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game or other event you want to attend and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And with the Patriots home opener against the Seahawks just weeks away, GameTime Picks has you covered. GameTime Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour returns guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. What time is it?
So some big NHL news on Tuesday. Leon Draisaitl traded to the Bruins. He traded to the Bruins. Can you believe it, Connor?
My God.
I'm reporting it here first. Traded to the Bruins. No, unfortunately, that's not the news. The news is that he signed an 8-year, $14 million per season extension that kicks into gear next year. So, Draisaitl is staying with the Edmonton Oilers. It is a very sad day. Just a damn shame. It just continues to. I hope they play the rest of the show.
I thought I was going to just play it continuously through the whole thing. We have to just trudge through the summer of R.I.P. to the summer of Leon.
I wanted it. Everybody wanted it. I mean, it would have been, and even like, if he didn't sign the extension until the end of last year, at least we would got the whole season of like, it could happen. It could happen. Now, I will say, like, this isn't just some gag we were all doing. Like, he made a hell of a lot of sense for here. It's clearly a need. Good friends with Pasternak. I think it was Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. I got the notification. I've yet to read the story, but I will read the story. Basically saying the Bruins are actually kind of the big losers from this because this basically completely shuts the door on getting Draisaitl. Unfortunate for the Bruins. It makes sense for Draisaitl. That's a long deal. He's not the highest paid player in the NHL. So again, sucks for the Bruins though. I think this does. They're not going to say it changes their plans publicly, but I do wonder if this, how much it shifts things behind the scenes.
I mean, I think it just further reinforces, right, that it's very fun to talk about. It's great to imagine the scenarios in which a guy who's 28, 29, top 5 player hits the market and can change the fortune of a franchise with one signing, right? That's very exciting, very tempting to see a scenario like that play out, but as fun as it's talked about, it very rarely actually comes to fruition, whether it's a guy actually hitting the market or going out and signing with another team, right? You had Stamkos in, 16 when he was 28, 29, prime of his career. He actually hit the market, I think it was noon, and then he re-signed with Tampa at 12:01.
I remember this.
There's not a lot of times we have a John Tavares where the guy actually does leave kind of at the prime of his career. Few and far between. So I think it just reinforces one that those scenarios don't come around that often. And if you're the Bruins, you can't bank on not getting bailed out because you'd be paying a shit ton of money, right? But you can't bank on a franchise savior completely shifting the fortunes of your team by hitting the market. Either a team is not going to let that happen and they will trade them to the highest bidder, or the player just going to want to stay where they're comfortable, right, where their feet are at. So again, unfortunate for the Bruins, but it just reinforces, right, that whether it's developing centermen like Matt Poitras or kind of these next wave of players, Dean Letourneau. Not to say these guys need to be friggin' Leon Draisaitl, right? But continue focusing on development, homegrown talent, where you can control them in terms of their contracts and have team control for a long time. Finding the right guys to fit in, whether it's a guy like Charlie Coyle who's blossomed into a second line centerman. Having the physical flexibility to sign a guy like Lindholm, those kinds of players that are still established star players, maybe not to the tier that Draisaitl is, but identifying when you have that physical flexibility to add those kind of players, because a guy like Draisaitl hitting the market, it's a lot of fun to think about him and Pasternak together, putting up a couple 120-point seasons, right? But very rarely does that opportunity actually manifest into something that's not goes beyond a Twitter thread or HF boards or anything like that.
Yeah, and we've said that all along of it's a fun idea. There's like a 10% chance it might happen, which is enough, right? That's enough. But it so rarely actually happens. That stuff's your best players often are not hitting the market. It is very rare, or you'll get late bloomers who hit the market, but it's so rare for those high-end, franchise-altering pillar guys to hit the free agency market, especially down the middle, where that is such a highly coveted position. You don't see that often. And it reinforces, they need to continue to draft centers. That's why, again, I like what they did at the draft this year, where they said, we're drafting a potential number one center someday. Matt Patra's developing into a top 6 center. You got Georgi Merkulov, So, again, I'm not saying that those guys are the next Bergeron and Krejci, and they're not, the next Crosby and Malkin and all that stuff, but I do think it's important that they continue to harp on that, because the reality is, and I know we agree on this, the draft is your best bet for finding those guys. It's like you're not really trading for them. Obviously, they did sign Elias Lindholm this offseason, but again, he's a special case. That's also not like a Leon Draisaitl type. It's a borderline number one center, as we've said. So unfortunate that this has ended. It ended long before I wanted it to. This would be something fun we always kind of hit on throughout the year. Like if the Oilers started the year like I don't know, 5-14 would be like, oh, it's happening. It's happened. Draisaitl's out of there. You might as well just put the Bruins sweater on him now. But unfortunately, not the case. The Bruins did, though, go out and get themselves a center this past weekend, signing Tyler Johnson to a PTO. And Johnson was someone you and I had talked about on a past episode of Poke the Bear as sort of a PTO to watch. Intriguing get. I think you and I were more kind of in lockstep on a Wheeler or a Pacioretty might have been a better fit, just in terms of you have less guys going for that second line right wing spot than you do bottom 6 spots. But he is intriguing, and I think he still does have a good amount of runway left in the NHL. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you look at the risk involved, which there isn't a whole lot of, right, on a PTO, doesn't hurt to see what he has left in the tank, right? Played on a very bad Chicago team the last couple of years, but had 17 goals in 67 games. Again, I think saw like first unit power play reps there, played almost, I think, 16 minutes of ice time. Not going to be the case here, but this is a guy that has had a lot of productive years in the past with some very good Tampa Bay teams. Gives you some insurance, right? If in that top 6 spot, if Lysell can't run with it, if Merkulov can't do it, if you like what you see from Frederick and Geeky more in a third line role, maybe he's a guy that can step in there and produce if needed. And he's also insurance on the third line center spot. Again, you have contingency plans there with Matt Patra and Frederick and Geeky and these guys that can play down the middle. But if a guy like Johnson does hold his own and impress during camp, gives you options, right? And I think that's all what a PTO is. Like, the Bruins, I don't think, signed Danton Heinen last year being like, you don't run him through the database and a calculator like just fires out a thing saying like, oh, he's going to have 17 goals. Like, no, it's like you see what this guy has. Same with like what they got Alex Chason. And I think they realized quickly like probably wasn't going to work out. So, when a PTO deal, you're not committing money to these guys. You're not like, carrying them through the entire training camp preseason if you just don't think they have it. So if it goes awry, you have options. But I saw like as soon as they signed Johnson to the PTO, I saw some people mentioning like, well, it's not going to be third line center. They got Patra. It's like the Bruins are going to make sure they're going to take it easy with Patra. Like if they think that he needs some time to recover from his shoulder surgery, or they want to ease him into things, or he hits a lull, coming back up after, having all this time off, you have options now. You don't have to have him if he's in a rut or he's not, feeling confident about his game. There's nothing wrong with starting him in Providence for 10, 15 games, giving him top-line minutes, power play reps. And after 10 games, he's got 9 points and he's feeling good about his game and is confident, then you call him back up, right? You've got options there. So I don't think it's a one set in stone that Patra is your third-line center. Like the Lysell thing, the Bruins would love if that's the case. You don't have to worry about the lineup juggling or anything like that. But I do think having a guy like Johnson in place on a low-risk, PTO deal like that just gives you more options to see what this guy has. And if he has more to give, you'll take it. The Bruins have benefited from a lot of PTOs in the past, but if he doesn't, you can move on pretty quickly, knowing you do have options in place right now on the roster.
It's funny because I had been kind of steadfast in saying, I want to see what the young guys have down there. But if Johnson works out, it's like, well, go with that. Like, and you have, you do have some other spots you could potentially put young guys in. And if Johnson's going to give you the best chance to win, well, then that's kind of neglectful to not put him in that spot. Now, again, as you said, if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But his numbers last year were not horrendous, if memory serves. Like, I'm pulling them up now on Hockey Reference. 17 goals, like 31 points. I know, again, he played an elevated role. He was a minus 35. Like, there's all that stuff. The team stunk, and there were
not a good team.
Bad team. Pros and cons to that. But I do think there's clearly stuff left in the tank. And you also he's a vet. Like, that's another veteran in the room. Can mentor some of these younger centers coming up. A guy like Patra. So I don't hate it. And again, if it works out, terrific. If it doesn't, okay. Like, this is not. They didn't trade picks for him. They didn't sign him to, $4 million a year deal. It's okay. It's just a PTO. They're taking a flyer on him. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we have covered every step of the way. I almost said this off-season, but I think we're finally here.
We're out of the
off-season. Step of the way this 2024-25 Bruins season, whether that's recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, analysis, all that good stuff. You can read all of it over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, for some GIFs, some jokes, me and Ty making fun of Evan when he shows up at Warrior, all that good stuff, you can follow me at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. It is fun when I will check Twitter. I'll be off Twitter all day, and then I'll go look at it. Like, the third tweet I see, it's just my name in it. I'm like, oh man, like, I missed this. Anyways, that's been this episode of Poke the Bear, presented by PrizePicks and GameTime. You Poke the Bear listeners have a great rest of your week.